In this video, we're going to talk about how to change oil. When I change the oil in the garage, I get pieces of carpet to put down under the ramps, because you'll find that as you try to get up onto the ramps, they will slide forward and you may have to readjust it numerous times. First thing I do is I take the cap off where you put the oil in, so when it drains, it will drain out easier. Next thing you want to do is find where the oil drains and remove the bolt. Sometimes you'll even find it spelled out for you. So what we're gonna do, they all essentially look the same. It's gonna be some sort of pan like this, and then you're gonna remove this bolt, and as you remove this bolt, it's gonna start dripping, and that's when it's almost off. You wanna loosen it with a wrench, and then continue to loosen it off with your fingers. And when you get to the very end, you wanna go with it, because the oil is gonna shoot out. So you wanna make sure that your pan is sitting in the appropriate spot to where it's initially going to shoot out, and then it's going to start to it's going to shoot out, and then it's going to kind of leak down. So you want to have the pan to where it's going to be catching it when it shoots out, and then as it's dripping down, it will catch the rest. Now that I've loosened the nut, I'm going to slowly pull it off, but I'm going to push forward with it, and I'll feel when the last thread pops off. Then you can start to, that's not what I wanted to happen, but what you'll do is just quickly pull it away, otherwise you'll be wearing half the oil down your arm. And then once the stream is done going out strong, it's going to just kind of trickle out like where it's dripping. So what you're going to want to do then is just have the pan positioned to catch it either way. Having a rag handy for when you immediately have it running down your arm helps also. So now you can see the oil is just dripping out now. So it's safe for me to adjust the oil pan to where I can now take off the oil filter while it's still dripping. I try to let as much drip out as possible. So the oil pan, the oil filter. The oil filter is generally pretty close to where the oil pan and everything is. This one's right here. So when you take this off, oil is going to start dumping out everywhere. So you want to make sure you have your oil pan in an appropriate spot to catch it all, because it's going to come down here and just kind of go everywhere as you're turning it. Sometimes if you don't do it yourself, or even if you do it yourself, the oil filter will be on very, very tight, and you'll need to use like an oil filter wrench. And I've even had to go as far as hammering a screwdriver through and using that to get the proper amount of torque to get it off, because it was just seized on. Alright, so I got the oil filter off, and something happened, and I'm glad it happened because I wanted to show you. If you've changed oil before, you'll notice that something is missing. There's a rubber gasket that's stuck to it. If I didn't catch that and I stuck the new oil filter on there, then all the oil would have leaked out while I was driving, and would probably have led to my motor blowing up for driving with no oil. Because by the time you realize that you're too far from home, and then you have to actually take the oil filter off and take this gasket off and put a new filter on, and by then it's probably too late. So what I always do, see, this is supposed to be on here. What I always do when I it's like a mental check when I put the new oil filter on, I actually rub my finger around on here and I rub some oil on the new filter to kind of lubricate it a little bit. And it's kind of like a way that I always make sure that this came off, because it typically doesn't happen, but as you can see, sometimes it does. Another thing I like to do is, so I can always remember what oil filter I need and which oil it needs and how much, I keep the top of one of the oil filter packages, and I just write the information. It uses 0W20 oil, 4.5 quarts. So that way you have to always go back and look it up in the manual. Little cheat to save you some time. So now we have replaced the old oil filter with a new one, and we have put back the oil plug. That's the most important thing, because when you go and start dumping new oil in here, it's going to go right out the bottom on the ground if you didn't. I just got done dumping the old used oil into the empty container. I usually keep a couple empty containers after I'm done refilling the vehicles, so that way I have something to dump it in. And what I do afterwards is I take some tape and I tape the lid to where that way none of my kids can get into it, and also you don't have to worry about mixing it up with your good oil versus your used oil, but mostly for the kids. And you always want to tape it this way, so that way you're not going to be loosening the top off as you're loosening it, as you're wrapping it with tape. So always righty-tighty. Now, after you have refilled the engine to the proper amount of oil, replace the cap and you are done.